This is the VoiceOver Marketing Podcast, Episode 5.
You ever stick your glasses up your nose to make you sneeze?
No.
It works.
I don't have glasses.
Hello and welcome to this episode of the VoiceOver Marketing Podcast. My name is John Melly, and this is the podcast dedicated to teaching in-depth and advanced marketing strategies for people in the voiceover and audio production professions. My goal is to help you make more money by showing you ways to leverage your time, charge more for your talents, and allow you to spend more time doing the things you want to do in your life. Hey there, it's John. Welcome back to the program. My guest today is Tom Collins, an expert in direct marketing. This interview with Tom is a bit different. I want to make a couple of points before we dive in. Tom does a lot in the direct response world. He did a lot of classified advertising. What I want you to do is try and see how the broader themes of how he approaches marketing can apply to marketing our voiceover businesses. Here are some key themes to listen for. Each piece of marketing is designed to take your prospective client to the next step. It's supposed to answer their questions. Another point, try not to over-leverage your marketing. Sometimes people want one piece of marketing to do a lot of things, like attract a customer, answer all the objections, and close business all in one marketing attempt. That rarely happens. Listen to how Tom talks about leveraging relationships and networks to position you in a way to take yourself out of being considered a voiceover commodity. And finally, Tom talks about the importance of mindset in growing your business and how some people hold themselves back from really growing their businesses because of where they place mental limits on their income. Tom's worked with some big names and some big numbers, and some of the revenue figures he talks about when working with clients may make you shake your head. I must admit that when I heard them, I was kind of thinking to myself, wow, I'd love that kind of money. But don't be intimidated by those numbers. Listen to how he talks about mindset and how you can take your business to the next level. There are some really great nuggets of information in our conversation, and I know you're going to want to listen to the show at least a couple of times and share it with your friends and make notes. Another thing, Tom was on his cell phone, and I think he called in from vacation to be on the show. So, Tom, just a big shout out and thanks to you for taking time away from your family to do this. Also, just a heads up before we dive in with Tom, we're changing up the format a little bit this time. I'm going to put the announcements after my interview with Tom. So stick around for that for some information about where I'm going to be presenting and future guests for upcoming episodes of the podcast and some other neat information about the podcast. So with that, let's meet our special guest, Tom Collins. Well, welcome back. As I mentioned in the intro of the program, my guest today is Tom Collins, who is a direct response marketing executive, and he's worked for direct response firms, really big ones, like companies that do over $150 million plus year after year after year. And he started this whole thing at the age of 22, and he recently ended a 14-year stint at the noted coaching and marketing company PMI, where he served as a vice president and built and led multiple profitable divisions. Tom's specialty is developing and executing successful, response-driven campaigns for lead generation partners in television, seminars, direct mail, and online marketing. And currently, Tom's consulting clients include entrepreneurs and marketers of real estate, motivational seminars, information marketing, coaching, telecom, and fitness and nutrition products and services. And I've known Tom probably about 5 years now.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah, and we actually got to know each other a little better in a mastermind group. I've talked a number of times on the podcast about the power of mastermind groups, but Tom and I were in a mastermind group together. He's doing some really interesting things now. He's got the 8-figure boot camp and coaching program that he's doing. As I've said a number of times in previous episodes, what I try to do with this podcast is bring people from outside the voiceover and production worlds and show how marketing from all types of businesses can be applied to voiceover and production businesses, because we all really are in business for ourselves. So, Tom, I want to thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to spend some time with us today and answer some cool questions. How are you?
I'm great. I'm kind of excited to be talking to you. It's always fun to talk to you, John.
Well, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
So you started your marketing journey at the age of 22. And I won't tell everybody how old you are, but that was a while ago, right?
That was about half a lifetime ago, yeah.
Okay.
So, half my life now I've been putting ads in various places. Lots of fun.
What was it about marketing that drew you to it?
So I grew up kind of in a blue-collar neighborhood where everybody worked by the hour, and there were a couple of people in my neighborhood, a couple of guys that I really looked up to, some friends' dads, and they owned businesses. Man, what is that like? Those guys are the guys. They have the nicest house in the neighborhood. They drive the nice cars. They go on the best vacations. They take me on vacations with them, with their kids. And I thought, that would be really cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
And just my interest was piqued. And so one of them said, you know what, when you're in high school and college, get some sales experience. Learning sales will just open doors for you like you wouldn't believe. So I started down that path and did door-to-door sales and, referral marketing sales, which is the equivalent of door-to-door sales, the really hard kind of sales. And I was pretty good at it. And I got an opportunity with one of these sales organizations to actually kind of open up an office and on my own dime. And so they teach you how to put ads in the paper. And this was back in 1990, so there's no internet.
Okay.
So I put an ad in the paper. I spent $150. I committed like $5,000 to running an office for the summer, and I was sitting there going, wait a minute, what have I done? I could have just spent this $5,000 on college next year and just be fine, Okay. So I had this little freak-out moment going, I hope this works. And I put this ad in the paper, and I committed to a 3-month contract with the paper so I could get the best rates and all this stuff. And just in that freak-out moment, I sat there in just absolute silence for about 4 hours, waiting for the phone to start ringing. And then at a certain, right around noon, all of a sudden, boom, the first call comes in, the second call comes in, and that week we had, 200 people came into my office to apply for this little sales job.
Oh, wow.
And I was just awestruck. I went, wow, I put a 3-line ad in the paper and 200 people came to my office. And ever since then, it's just that curiosity of hey, what if I run this ad? What's going to happen? How will people respond? And just the whole dynamic of the power of advertising just captured me at that moment. And since then, I just, kind of grew up and pursued what looked interesting and wound up, with a couple of buddies of mine who started a company, and it just blew up into something really, really big and just had some cool experiences along the way. So, yeah, so that's how I got my start,
You know what? I want to pursue this line a little bit because you said something that was really interesting. You had a 3-line ad and you got a huge response. But there are probably, or were at the time, hundreds of ads on the same page that probably didn't have the same kind of response. What do you think, and you're an expert at this, what do you think it was about that ad that differentiated it or struck the right chord to generate that response? And the follow-up to that is, how did you replicate that over and over?
Oh, okay. So, so there's for me, there's been a pattern. The first thing is, I knew this fact at the time, but I didn't know how important it was at the time. But the guy that I learned how to do this from was the best in his company. He set all the company records, was the record holder, all-time sales, and all of those things. And he taught me how to place this ad. He actually said, here's the ad I use, run this, it works every time. And then I learned how it actually works. But what he had done, so the first clue, and throughout my career, I've always just pursued who's number one in this industry or space or niche or channel that I'm in. Let's go get as close to that person as we can, or let's partner with that world-class person, and that makes life easier at every level. But so he said, hey, this works, just run it. So I ran it. But once I understood what we were doing, what I realized is he had figured out, he knew that was the game, that it wasn't you just put an ad in and if people are interested in your product or service, they'll buy it. It was you have to win against the other competing ads.
Right.
So you have to have something a little more attractive, a little more sexy, that has an instant appeal so that people ignore everything else, or if they're making as in classified ads used to be, people would make a list of, I'm going to call these 5 or these 3 or whatever. So we just knew what the hot buttons were to get people to call. And then the second thing with advertising is, the key with advertising is you want people to take one step. what's the one step you want them to take, and just sell the daylights out of that. So in our case, we wanted them to call us.
Okay.
So all we did was focus on making them call us, because then we knew we could give them more information about the job and, those types of things. But a lot of people, they'll write a long ad and just basically too much information, and people read it and go, I don't know. Now they get confused by too much information.
Interesting. So focus on one thing, get them to do that, take them to the next step.
Yeah, move people one step at a time. We're not comfortable creatures when we're being moved, too fast.
That's fascinating. Would you say that is true with pretty much any form of advertising?
Oh, yeah. So my background is direct response. So we'll run a multi-step campaign, as you'll hear, and say, okay, we make money on step 5, but what we do is we just focus on, okay, step 1, a free response. Step 2, feed them some information and ask for, some activity. And what we're doing is just emoting all of the psychological and emotional triggers and getting people to yes themselves into a belief pattern that they go, I want this, whatever it is that we're offering.
Mm-hmm.
And by the time they get to what we call the money point, they're in. So, yeah, that's the background. So I don't know about advertising agencies and those types of things, but you typically can't sell more than one concept at a time.
Well, that's one of the things that I encounter frequently with radio advertising, because that's the world that I predominantly work in, that clients will frequently come in or do business with a station with a concept, and they're really expecting the ad to do too much. And that could manifest itself in a number of ways, one of which being they could put together a radio commercial and then not put enough ad buy in to get enough impressions out there. Or the other thing is that they may spend a lot of money on time, but then expect the commercial to do a whole bunch of things. Like an example that I use with folks is if you were an insurance company and you were trying to attract people to come in and buy an auto insurance policy, a lot of times they'll come in with copy that says, I've got over 700 years worth of combined experience in the insurance industry with our staff, and come in and call up and order write up a policy today. And the thing that you really got to do is, maybe there's a change in the auto insurance regulations, and you've got a free report on how to deal with those things, or things to look out for, and ways you can save money under the new regulations. Get the free report. You've got their contact information, and you follow up that way. But a lot of folks expect the person to hear the ad, pick up the phone, or walk through the door and make a sale.
Yeah. It's truly understanding the sales process, right? Again, back in the door-to-door day, the best sales training anybody can get, and not that I would ever want to go back to it, but I literally yesterday was with the guy that I was telling you about. His name's Steve Weber, and he just sold a big real estate website company for $1 gazillion, and he was talking about this new business he's starting. He said, hey, so I went door to door and pitched 100 businesses, and here's what they said. That was how he did his market research for his next big company. But in that...
That's a really key point. Here's a guy who's just sold a business for millions of dollars, and he's still cool with himself or comfortable with himself to go door to door.
Yeah.
He's not above or below anything. He's just does what he has to do.
Yeah. He gets live actual knowledge of, hey, I have this thing for businesses. I want to go see what they think, and back to the old roots,
Interesting.
And,
so I interrupted your train of thought there. Sorry.
No, it's great, but it's truly understanding the sales process. And so in that same model, one of the things that really always stands out in my mind, and anytime you're selling something, regardless of if you do a lot of little short steps, or if you do long form like an all-day seminar or a 30-minute TV show or a long-form sales letter, right? You're still selling one thing in that setting, but you're moving making the one movement. But understanding the sales process, people have in their minds a number of either objections that have to be covered or key points explained to them about the product or service they're going to buy in terms of features, benefits, emotions, psychology, want, need, desire, right? All of those things. Mm-hmm. And until that number's reached, they're not buying.
You're saying until all those questions have been answered by you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, some people are just easy buyers, and they only need 2 things, and they go, oh, I want that, and they buy, right?
Okay.
Others, there's 77. Well, if you're not one-on-one, face-to-face selling a person, you can't know what those 77 are by reading their body language or whatever. So your sales process has to go, okay, we want to capture a certain number of people that are likely candidates. So let's create the process that covers and handles and, hits them from all sides, frankly.
Interesting.
Those are the things that we think about. We go, okay, have we covered all of the key points? Yeah, okay, great. We're moving them along. Are they saying yes? We used to do face-to-face 90-minute seminars, and for 90 minutes, for the first 85 minutes before the close, all you're doing is nodding your head, getting people to say yes, to agree to, would you like to make this change? Would you like to have this benefit? Would you like to have this feature? Does that make sense to you? Right? Those kinds of things. And at the end of 85 minutes of nodding yes, they're pretty much saying yes to your product. And that's one of those things where you think, how can my ad get someone to say, ooh, I want that? Or, yeah, I'm curious about that. So I want to say something about your ad, though. Can I keep going?
Sure.
Where with the radio ad?
Yeah.
So just you've got me going, man. I appreciate the energy here. So one of the things that I think have worked really well is two different methods. One is the bizarre and the interesting, the just kind of weird attention getter. Geico did a really good job mixing the little gecko, the lizard, the gecko, and the killer appeal of save 15%, right? Everybody knows save 15% in 15 minutes was their key line.
Yeah.
But the other thing was, oftentimes when you enter a market, or if you're just starting out advertising and you're not sure that bizarre is going to work because you don't really know the response, typically if you can just 1+ your competition and just be right next to them, you can start carving a little market share.
What do you mean by 1+, Tom?
So 1+ meaning, let's say somebody's offering 15%. I hate to offer discounts in advertising is the first thing, but let's say somebody's offering 15%. Your ad sits right next to theirs, and you say 17%.
Okay.
Or when I was recruiting sales reps, right, the average wage was $12 an hour, so we advertised $13.50, and it's just that natural, simple appeal.
Yeah. Well, people want more cake than less cake.
Yeah. Well, it's obvious because it's all the same to them.
Right.
So getting the response and then moving them through the process is the key. But you always have to win the attention war at the beginning.
Hey, let me ask you a question. You kind of mentioned this in terms of 1+. One of the things that voiceover folks struggle with is pricing their services and avoiding being a commodity. And it's stuff that I've written and spoken about quite a bit. I'm going to ruffle some feathers here. But here we go.
There you go.
So there are a lot of pay-to-play sites out there, and part of the problem is that it's not 1+ there; it's 1-, because you have a bunch of people out there with a voiceover demo, and then they'll offer to meet or beat the bid.
Oh.
And that's great if you're looking to just get some experience under your belt when you're first starting and all that. But if you're a seasoned pro or you've been at it any length of time, it's like, well, okay, the coolness factor of you'll be heard all across the country. We won't pay you, but you'll be heard everywhere. It's like, well, great. I'm not there to hear myself. So that carrot wears off pretty quick, and people are like, yeah, that's great, but I need to make more money in order to really justify my continuing doing this. So what would you recommend to folks to position themselves in a way that they're actually 1+ing rather than taking away from their own earning?
Oh man,
that's a huge question, I know, but
it's a huge question. So let me. What I'm trying to do is think of a voiceover person not knowing your business well enough, but let me give you. So in my company at PMI, the last company I went to, we would shop people and bargain and negotiate and those things. But effectively, we just wanted the best. Who's the best guy at the best price? Or whatever. And so typically we would, who's known? Hey, who's the best at this? Oh, it's John Melly. Oh, okay, call John, see what he'll do. And if it just didn't sound outrageous, we would just pull the trigger. Because we knew John was the best, right? So the first key is, and this is not something that happens, in one day, but it's worth working towards. The wealth from it is so much more worth than doing all the other things. But networking your way up to the top, getting noticed, getting known as someone who's quality and reputable, and leveraging those clients. The other thing, and John, I think you've done this, maybe with a group or two, is finding a target group that trusts their leader, right? So you have a group, right? And you've done a piggyback marketing deal, and you've done a rev share deal, I'm sure, or some
Sure.
type of a deal,
Yep.
and started getting clients that way. Well, guess what? Well, yes, you're getting clients directly from this organization. You're paying them for those leads, and some people like that, some people don't. But what happens is the people you service, those clients that came out of there, they also have a network of people that they refer. And so it allows you to have pricing integrity and be known as, hey, this guy was recommended by a professional organization. I used him. He was great. And now you can do piggyback marketing with their friends and ask for referrals and those things. That, by far, exceeds the value of being the cheapest guy on the block. Hey, I'm the cheapest,
Right.
You're on the street corner doing tricks, man. That's guys can make a little money doing that, but it's just for the same amount of hustle, I guess is the way to put it. You can put together some pretty good piggyback deals, and so it's networking in organizations that you have an affinity with, or it works and fits, and then working those referrals and working those leads, and whether it's niching down or just being known. Voiceover makes me think of the boxing guy. Let's get ready to rumble, right?
Yeah.
How many commercials has that guy been in that have nothing to do with boxing, but everybody knows that?
Sure.
It's his one unique thing. So in our company, we were this little group, and we had a lead partner, and we just focused on the thing that we did is it was really hard for us to outperform our competition because really everybody was the same.
Yeah.
So what we focused on was the thing they were most concerned about, and that was cash flow. And so we made sure we paid on time every single week. In our industry, people were known for skipping a payment or, delaying a payment if cash flow got tight on your side. And that had nothing to do with our performance, but it had everything to do with the trust of the people we got into. And it just kept us going higher and higher and higher. And our, quote, friends in our industry couldn't get the same accounts, and they didn't know why. They're like, we're better than you. No, you're not. We pay every week.
Right.
Oh, yeah, but we had trouble. Well, too bad. We had trouble, too. We still paid. And we got the account. And we have the reputation. And we won. And became the biggest in our industry and had the biggest accounts. And then eventually, because of all those things, we attracted the best sales guys. And we won, and we won, and we won.
That was huge. Because what you might not consider a strategic advantage may in fact be.
Yeah.
That's huge. Thank you.
So, so from voiceover, can you deliver on time? Can you truly understand somebody's background so that you can speak to it in a way that you can contribute to the conversation, as opposed to, and I'm sure this happens to you, John, where people go, here's a script, read it, go do your thing, dude.
Yep.
There's a big range in there, and if you can get people going, hey, how do you think we should approach this? What would you do? And you can bring your repertoire of voice and talent and ideas to it. That makes you more valuable to them.
Yeah.
By far. Yeah.
Geez, that was fantastic. There were so many things in there. I hope people are taking notes. And if you're driving in your car, remember to go back and listen to that again, because Tom just outlined a blueprint for you to not be part of the commoditization of voiceover.
It takes hustle for sure, but, for the guy willing to hustle, you can always win.
It takes hustle and it takes time, but really, if you, like you said, it's worth putting the time in up front, because, the person who's working for $50 a read, how many of those reads are they going to have to do in order to make $1,000? That's 20 reads versus somebody who can do one read and make $1,000. And they can use that money and the time that they don't have to devote to doing all the 19 other reads. They can put more time and effort into giving a great performance, picking the right sound effects if they're part of that process or what have you, but also being able to market themselves and use those resources, whereas the other person who's doing it on the cheap is going to be blowing through this stuff, may not be able to give as great a performance as they could or have to, and so they shortchange the client that way, because to make that money, they've got to spend more time doing it. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Hey, so do you remember, was it the Honeymooners? Jackie Gleason?
Yeah.
Tell me if you've heard the story. So, again, you sparked an idea for me. So Jackie Gleason was in his early days, he was a stand-up comedian, right?
Yep.
And there was another famous comedian, Milton Berle, or some peer of his at the same time, who said the one thing, they saw Jackie Gleason in this event where they were at the Hollywood Bowl and it was raining cats and dogs and there were like 20 people in the audience. And so I doubt it was Milton Berle, but whoever it was, they went out on stage and did their act, and they kind of just halfway, just whatever, nobody's here, this doesn't matter, I'm out of here.
Yeah.
Did their act. Jackie Gleason went out and they said they were just blown away because this guy gave his absolute all to the 20 people standing in the ring.
Okay.
And they noticed that. And this is before either one of them were made, right, before they were on TV and big time. And he said that that stuck with him ever since. In fact, that kind of changed his attitude about small events. Well, we had a guy who was a direct response guy on TV. There were a couple of really good years. We did $100 million in the name of this guy.
Okay.
In business. Huge.
Yeah.
But when he was new with us, we did a teleseminar to what was supposed to be a lot of students, and only 4 showed up. And we said, hey, there's only 4 people. Do you want to just cancel out? He said, no. This will be great. I'll help these people. And he gave the same kind of teleseminar that he gives today in front of 2,000 people to 4 people.
Wow.
And I think there's something in that. So whether you're working for $50 a read or $5,000 for a project, I think that's one of those key indicators, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Jim Palmer was the newsletter guru. He was on the program the last episode, and one of the things that he said was he was a big ZZ Top fan, and he gave the example of somebody asked the band, do you ever get tired of playing a song? And they said, no. If the fans want to hear the song, we play it because they're the reason we get to do what we do. Yeah. So the customer is always in mind. And,
yeah, that's huge.
And that's why they're still performing 40 years later. So I want to shift gears a little bit. You left PMI. You were there for 14 years. You helped make them hundreds of millions of dollars. And you started your own deal.
Yes.
And now you're doing some coaching called the 8-Figure Coaching and Marketing?
So I have a little blog at 8figurebusiness.com where I put up little snippet trainings, videos, and things like that. And then I take on consulting clients, and every once in a blue moon I do a boot camp. So I'm doing one this month in June, and I did one 18 months ago. So every now and then I get just a wild hair and go, hey, let's do another boot camp. That'll be fun.
Okay.
But mostly it's client work, consulting work.
Okay. So what's the blog again? 8-Figure Boot Camp?
8-Figure Business is the blog.
Oh, okay. And that's the number 8, right?
The number 8, yes.
Okay. So what happens in these boot camps?
So what I do in the boot camp is my area of expertise is really kind of the executive strategy. So helping people make a decision of how they're going to generate leads for their business. And typically, boot camp attendees already have that part maybe not mastered, but they have at least one decent lead source where they have customers coming in so that we know how to help them. And then what I'm really good at is helping people from the time they have a lead or their first-time buyer, helping them build out a blueprint or a roadmap of the lifetime customer experience that they're going to have with that customer. So many people, one of the biggest mistakes I see in most businesses is they try to get customers once, and they don't think of, okay, let's get the customer to come back. Let's get the customer to buy in bulk. Let's get the customer to refer their friends. Let's maximize the value of the customer by, obviously, good product, quality, and service.
Mm-hmm.
And so we go through, what I do is I teach, it's a 50-50 time. So it's about half the time I teach the strategy, thought process of lead acquisition, core product profit, back-end marketing, ongoing relationship marketing, and then all of the follow-up and customer service and monetization and the other details that go into keeping people your customer. And then the other half of the time, what we do is there's usually about 6 or 8 participants. So these are pretty small.
Oh, okay.
And what we do is we get on the whiteboard. So you've been in a mastermind, John.
Yeah.
Where in a mastermind, what people get is you get a few minutes to get up and draw on a whiteboard or make a PowerPoint presentation and go, hey, here's what I'm doing. Here's where I need help. Here's, I wonder if you guys, the other 10 or 15 people in the room, can give me some ideas. But it's all driven by you. And what I found is when I get up and make my mastermind presentations, I always kind of put my best foot forward, and I don't really expose all my weaknesses, and I don't really divulge all the truth about the things that I really probably need help on.
Sure, yeah. That's
purely pride. I think everybody opens up a little bit, but
yeah.
In the boot camp, I get up and you sit on the hot seat and I ask you questions and I dissect your business with everyone there. And then some great things come of that. One is I actually know how to ask the hard questions and help you find the money points and the, what we call the leaks in the pipe along the way. And then we spend the next hour, once we've dissected everything, we spend another hour just literally breaking down and making suggestions and wherever there is a need, we just focus on it right then and there, so that you go home going, oh, well, frankly, you might be able to make the fix right there, but you know exactly what actions to take to improve those things. So sometimes it's pretty subtle. One woman had an event. She was selling out her event 6 months in advance. We said, well, you can do more events, or you can raise your prices, or, you know, but we fixed 6 or 7 things and did really, really well. And others, it's a lot of fun. So that's the dissection that we do. But it's me asking the owner, the business owner, questions about, okay, where are your leads? Where do they come from? How much do they spend? How long are they with you? What else do they buy from you? What do they complain about? Which is a huge, huge tip. Being able to solve the complaints of your customers helps you sell more than a lot.
Okay. Yeah, that's key.
You know, because people typically will go, gosh, the reason I'm canceling is because of this. Well, if you can solve this, they won't cancel. Or the reason I didn't buy is because I wish you would have done X. Well, if you can solve I wish you would have done, or I wish you did this, that's what they want. Well, deliver what they want, and you've created value. So, you know, if you think about it, I worked a short stint selling cell phones 20 years ago, you know, in my kind of growing up time. And we would sell the phone, or we give it away free or for $50 or whatever. They still do that today. But the phone cost the little company I worked for like $300. They were paying AT&T or whatever, $300 for the phone. We're like, why are you losing money on the phone? They said, well, we get like $400 a year on the service. Plus, when we sell accessories, we get another $80 or $100.
Right.
Oh, well, let's give away all the phones we can, man, because that's a lot of money.
Yeah.
You know, right? So
Yeah.
it changes your thinking.
Well, it's just like Gillette. They gave away the razor and sold them blades.
Yeah. The money's in the blades, right?
Right.
Yeah. Classic example. So anyway, I've gotten off, but that's kind of what we do at the boot camp. And so, can I just tell you kind of my purpose of the 8-figure business? The whole reason for 8-figure business is I go, you know, you've seen me. I go to events, and I end up sitting next to somebody who really needs my help, and it's not going to work financially, right? They're not going to become a consulting client of mine. And it drives me crazy to think, gosh, I can't help this person more than just a few minutes of advice that I can give them right here. So I set up 8-figure business really to give people really good training on direct response marketing, and it just comes in tips and clues and things like that. Of course, it's lead generation for me, for the person who's the right match and, you know, and can afford my consulting. But the reason for 8-figure business is it's just kind of my, like, open up to the world to everybody and tell the truth about marketing, tell the truth about, you know, what they really need to be doing instead of some of the fluff that they, you know, that's just out there that's masked. So that's the true purpose of 8-figure business. I wouldn't have to do that to get clients. I could just go direct, but I did the blog because it drives me crazy to sit next to somebody who's like, yeah, if I can only make $20,000 extra this year, it would change my life, or $5,000 extra, it would change my life. And I'm like, man, I wish I could help professionally spend the time that it would take to turn them around. Yeah. So I just put this out just to do that.
Well, let me ask you a question about that. So when somebody says, you know, wish I could make an extra $20,000 a year, is part of your thinking process, geez, I wish I could help this person, but I can't afford to do that for my time. But are you sitting there going, geez, you may think only a $20,000 bump would be great, but I'm seeing 6 figures bump. Is that part of the equation?
Yeah.
Okay.
You know, oftentimes somebody will have an idea, and I'm already going, all right, here's how we get to $1 million in that. We go get this and go get that and da-da-da-da-da. and what I do is I overwhelm them in about 15 minutes of conversation. I go, oh, gosh, I got to back up, you know.
It's not 6 figures for you. It's like, well, you're not seeing the potential that you have with this. This isn't a $20,000 thing. This is much more than that if you do it right, but you're like, like you said, you overwhelm them.
Well, the interesting thing at PMI is we sold coaching, right, to people who had a new idea to start, you know, to put out on the internet. But I also ran marketing campaigns with world-class marketers. So dual thinking of, I understand the person who wants to make a little extra or quit their job and make $100,000 a year doing their own thing and have that kind of, you know, entrepreneurial experience. And I also know, but I think in terms of, okay, so if we can get 50 customers a week, then why can't we get 5,000 customers a week? It's really the same thing, and the process and the thinking it's the same. Most people don't know that it's really the same. They just don't know to think that big.
Interesting. Do people get scared thinking that big?
Oh, yeah. Even the best marketers in the world Wait, I have a client who he hit his all-time sales record in January of this year, and he called me. He goes, I've never been here before. I'm freaking out. What do I do?
Yeah.
So I asked him the question, has anything changed from 2 months ago when you were at half those sales? No, it's just bigger numbers. I'm just kind of freaking out because I've never been here before. And basically we decided just hold the course, catch your breath, and basically he hit a certain point where it made sense to not pursue more sales, right? There was diminishing returns for more sales. But, he went from $600,000 a month in October to $3 million a month in January. And he was freaking out. Who wouldn't freak out? It's exciting, but it's also like, you just got thrown in the air by a geyser and now you're free floating. And, it's a very real experience. And people have that at whatever the number is in their head. So if they thought they could make $200 a month extra and they make $2,000, people have that freak out moment. They're like, whoa, because they didn't expect it. But once you get used to it, it's easier to deal with.
Well, sounds
numbers
like
are just numbers. It's no difference. Literally, if you can buy an ad that gets you a customer for a price that comes at a profit, you can always buy more ads, right?
Yeah.
Even if it's in one city the next. I mean, there's so many dynamics to it, but it's a very simple thought process of, hey, can we go out let's just try to buy more and more and more.
I guess the biggest worry is being able to fulfill the demand.
Yeah.
And make good on the services. Because that's the key. You'll drive yourself out of business fast if you can't.
Right. And it happens very rarely, but we've had a couple of experiences where we sold so many units of something, we overwhelmed the company with fulfillment ability, blew them up, kind of thing. But part of 8-figure thinking versus 5- and 6-figure thinking, like we talked about, is knowing how to set up a scalable system and knowing where the breaking points are, and either being able to pull back and say, okay, we're good, or being able to, Henry Ford is creating an automated system that just allows that kind of growth. And dealing with growing pains is just as painful as not having money, but you have money when you have growing pains. So
yeah,
it's a lot more fun.
Yeah, it's a good problem to have.
Work is work. It's just, do you get work with a big reward or work just because you have to?
I like that. Tom, I have to watch the clock, but this has been fantastic.
Oh.
Tom, you mentioned the difference between an 8-figure marketer and a person who's only hitting 5 or 6 figures. What is that difference?
Most of the time, like I mentioned, is it's the size of your thinking. It's your mindset, and it's being comfortable with it, right?
Mm.
So you're the person, when an 8-figure business person, whether they come naturally wired, which very few do, or they grow into it, it's being able to think at a level of, okay, if we just did more volume, what does that mean and how do we handle it? And there are very few differences in that. Sometimes you'll upgrade the software in your product and stuff like that, but that's all secondary thought process. But usually that's what scares people. But it's mindset. It's, okay, let's just keep going, keep doubling down, keep adding to the business.
What would you say if somebody wanted to change their mindset? What would be like a couple of things you'd recommend? Say, okay, if it's mindset, what can I do to change it so that I can earn more?
So I would start with all of the key authors, right? So I grew up on Zig Ziglar, Brian Tracy, then Tony Robbins came into the mix. John Assaraf is interesting. I don't know him well enough. I guess he did The Secret.
Oh, right.
Here's something I read. This is probably, I want to say this was in a sports magazine, like Sports Illustrated or something, about what it takes to be a professional athlete mentally.
Okay.
And one of the things we did at PMI is we would evaluate talent and guys who were gurus, and we go, okay, do they have it? And it really felt a lot like the music business, right? I don't know a lot of people in the music business, but they're evaluating, do they have that it? One of the things we looked for was, do they have enough confidence in themselves to pursue this, right? Will they break down with too much pressure, or can they handle it?
Oh, okay.
And in this sports magazine, they mentioned something interesting, and I want to add to what they said, but this guy mentioned, he said, hey, of all the professional athletes I ever met, what I saw is either, one, a gigantic ego. They were just so into themselves, right? And it takes a lot of ego to put yourself out there.
Yep.
Or a complete faith in God, right? This just ultimate conviction in God. And, you think Tim Depot, Terrell Owens are the two poster childs for each. There's a big spectrum in between.
Uh-huh.
I would add a third, that there's a supreme confidence in their abilities. And sometimes that comes because it's the ego and they just desire to be there and they kind of figure it out on the way, or that conviction. But that supreme confidence typically just comes from earning your stripes and just working your way towards that goal,
Interesting.
Digging and getting there. And I kind of had the easy road, if you will, as working in PMI and direct response. I was that guy, but we partnered with world-class people, and so very quickly I didn't go from a little bit to a little bit more to a little bit more to a little bit more over a number of years. It was a little bit to boom, a lot. Okay, now we're playing with people who do a lot, and we just met more people who did a lot. And you find out that those guys don't know as much as you think they know. They're just going for it.
And then they have the confidence to handle whatever it is that comes along once they get there.
Yeah, you kind of wing it at that level the first time, too, just like you wing it at the newbie level the first time. You're still just learning as you go, and there's no better learning than just going for it, than experience.
I love it. Well, Tom, this has been great.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm glad you did. The stuff that you shared with us has been fantastic, and I really want to recommend to people that if you are driving or you're working out or you're doing something else where you can't write down some of those thoughts, Tom really outlined very quickly a terrific blueprint and a number of key thoughts, along with about a half dozen authors that are really big in terms of developing a mindset. So a lot of great nuggets and writer-downers, Tom.
Thanks.
Thank you. If people want to learn more about the 8figurebusiness.com, is that the best way to get that information? Yeah. 8figurebusiness.com?
Yeah, go there. I'm pretty accessible, there and on Facebook, and same thing, Tom Collins, 8-Figure Business. I don't pull up the blinds and not talk to people. I like talking to people and doing stuff. So, if I brought up something that poses a question or whatever, I might not spend hours solving your business, but I'm always happy to talk to people. Love to talk to people. So many people have just so many new and creative and interesting ideas I've never thought of. I love hearing people's ideas. Yeah,
I do too. That's one of the great things about this business. Some of the things that I do with my business is I get to talk to all kinds of business owners in amazing slivers of the economy that they're making big amounts of money at, and you're just amazed by it.
Oh, yeah.
All right, Tom, it's 8figurebusiness.com, right?
Yes, it is.
All right. Tom, thanks again for being on the program. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome, John. Thanks for the fun. Appreciate it.
Well, I don't know about you, but I really learned an awful lot from my conversation with Tom. And he is just such a super nice guy, too. So go check out his website and check out the show notes for a link to that if you need to. Reach out to Tom. He's got some great information at that site. So a few announcements. I'm really excited to announce that I'm going to be a presenter at the VoiceOver Virtual Conference being put together by the folks at voiceoverextra.com. John Florian, the founder of VoiceOver Extra, and his marketing director, Martha Kahn, reached out to me a while back and asked if I'd put together a presentation on marketing. And my presentation is going to be about how to build a six-figure voiceover business without spending your entire day auditioning online. I'm in the process of putting that presentation together now. This will be the first time I'm presenting this information, and I'm going to peel back the curtain, really, on some of the key strategies I've used to build my business. And John hosted a webinar last week with Dan Leonard on the technical ways that we're able to put together our presentations and how we're going to upload them to them and how it's all going to be online. It was really kind of exciting to be participating in that as well. So this should be a lot of fun. I encourage you to watch voiceoverextra.com for details on when and how you can register for the VoiceOver Virtual Conference. It's all happening online, so this is pretty exciting. And speaking of VoiceOver Virtual, my guest for the next episode of the VoiceOver Marketing Podcast is going to be John Florian. And we're going to be talking all about the VoiceOver Virtual Conference. We're going to learn all about the exciting plans and different events that they have going on for that. I've also lined up several more interviews for upcoming episodes. We got some pretty sharp cookies on the show lined up, so I hope you'll stay tuned and spread the word. And I'm really excited because we're fast approaching 1,000 downloads. Now, that may not seem like a lot, but the show is only 5 episodes old, and we made it in the What's Hot section of iTunes, and we're starting to get a lot of traction. If you could do me a favor and write a review and rate this podcast on iTunes, that would be a tremendous help in keeping this podcast up at the top of the list and making it more noticeable for other folks who are interested in learning about growing their voiceover businesses. So thanks so much. Please send me your feedback. Please let me know what you want on future episodes, and we'll put that all together as best we can for you. So that's it for this episode of the VoiceOver Marketing Podcast. Thanks for listening. If you would like more information on coaching and mastermind group opportunities where we focus on growing your business, feel free to drop me a line at my cyber assistant's email address at mike@johnmelly.com. Thanks for listening. I'll talk to you soon. Now go out there and share your voice with the world.